Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. On Gravitas tonight, our top story focuses on how Russia's aerial war against Ukraine has entered a new phase. We also focus on how Moscow has been ramping up its missile production as its war machine shifts gears. We get to all of that in just a bit. And here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. We get you the latest after Israeli military struck several sites in Beirut's southern suburbs that it said held underground facilities used by Hezbollah for drone production. We tell you all about the explosive feud between Elon Musk and Donald Trump and get you the bigger picture. All this and much more coming your way. Our top story tonight on Gravitas, Russia has carried out one of its largest aerial attacks of the war, launching hundreds of drones and missiles across Ukraine overnight. In fact, Ukrainian authorities say at least 4 people have died, dozens more have been injured after waves of strikes targeted major cities, including the capital, Kiev. Russia's defense ministry has said the attack was a response to quote-unquote terrorist actions by Ukraine. Kiev came under intense fire as explosions and gunfire echoed through the night. Air defense systems engaged incoming missiles and drones for several hours, attempting to prevent further damage across the capital. Ukrainian officials said 406 of 452 airborne threats were intercepted, while the Ukrainian Air Force stated that Russia launched 407 drones, nearly 40 cruise missiles and 6 ballistic missiles from multiple directions between midnight and dawn. The attacks hit at least 13 locations across the country. Emergency services in Kiev responded to multiple fires, including one at a 16-story apartment complex.
We were in the underground parking lot when we heard a loud explosion. People ran outside to see what happened. Firefighters and an ambulance arrived. Then the missiles started coming. All the windows in my apartment were blown out. It's horrible.
A large number of Kiev residents could be seen taking shelter amid the missile barrage that lasted nearly 5 hours. Officials said that 3 of the 4 fatalities in Kiev were rescue workers attempting to contain the fires. Kiev's mayor says 22 people were injured. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky urged the US and Europe to ramp up pressure on Russia following the massive strikes.
400 ударних дронів.
During the night, more than 400 strike drones, more than 40 missiles, including ballistic ones, were launched. Please, I ask you to support all the efforts to put just pressure on Russia, to support diplomacy, political and economic pressure. Please urge for new effective sanctions against Russia.
якому були українські спортсмени.
In a post on X, Zelensky, in his words, said that Russia targeted almost all of Ukraine. The map on your screen showing where all Russia struck Ukraine. As Zelensky said, practically all of Ukraine. Russian strikes also hit cities that are typically less affected by the conflict. In Ternopil, located far from the front lines in western Ukraine, at least 10 people were injured, including 5 emergency workers. In Lutsk, a high-rise apartment building and several other locations sustained damage, leaving at least 15 people injured. Videos posted on social media showing the exact moment Russian missiles struck the city. The missile barrage following a series of recent Ukrainian operations that struck deep inside Russian territory. In just the past 7 days, Ukrainian drones have struck key Russian strategic bomber bases. Ukraine Security Service also carried out an underwater explosion on a key bridge. While there have been attacks on multiple Russian railway lines, derailing trains that have led to fatalities and severe injuries. Earlier this week itself, following a conversation with the Russian president, US President Donald Trump had warned that Russia would respond to such strikes. Besides the attacks on Friday, Putin has been executing calibrated attacks across Ukraine this week. Russia launched high explosive aerial bombs at the southern Ukrainian city of Kherson on Thursday. While on Wednesday night, a Russian attack on the city of Pryluki in Ukraine's northeastern region killed at least 5 people. Russia has significantly escalated its use of drones in recent months, reportedly launching more than 1,000 per week. Just last week, nearly 500 drones were launched in one night alone. Meanwhile, Ukraine's military also continues to carry out attacks on Russian military infrastructure. Drones targeted the airbase in Saratov region, triggering a large fire at an oil depot. Another explosion occurred at an airfield in Russia's Bryansk region, where local officials said 46 drones attempted to strike the area. Ukraine's general staff also said it struck Russian airfields in Ryazan region, in addition to fuel reservoirs. After one of the heaviest nights of aerial conflict in recent months, it's clear at this point that there is no let-up in the hostilities. And as the Russia-Ukraine war shifts gears and becomes more deadly, Moscow is planning for the future. Russia is not slowing down, it's shifting into overdrive, in fact. As Western support surges for Ukraine, Moscow has been building more missiles faster than ever before. Our next report exploring if this is a prelude to firepower on a scale that Europe has not seen in decades.
The skies over Ukraine are lit. Missiles are screaming across the night sky. Bombs and drones are raining down. Every passing day, the attacks are becoming more and more intense. Caliber missiles have already been pounding Ukrainian energy hubs, while hypersonic Russian missiles are turning NATO-supplied weapons to dust. But the Russian arsenal isn't depleting. Ukraine now says Russia holds stockpiles of 700 ballistic missiles. According to Ukrainian military intelligence, Russia has increased its ballistic missile production by a massive 66% over the past year. Currently, 60 to 70 Iskander-M and 10 to 15 Kinzhal hypersonic missiles are rolling out of Russian factories every month, and that's just the start. According to US intelligence estimates, by 2035, Russia plans to manufacture 5,000 cruise missiles and 1,000 hypersonic weapons, including avant-garde glide vehicles, Zircon sea-launched hypersonics, and the air-launched Kinzhal. The same report also points out that Moscow plans to have 5,000 cruise missiles. Presently, Russian forces have anywhere between 300 to 600 missiles. Experts say Russia is preparing for a long war and possibly a larger one, with Ukraine striking deep inside Russian territory, including attacks on strategic air bases. Sensing the dangers, Russia is stockpiling smart, mobile, high-impact weapons. Russia is not alone. From Europe to the US, every nation is spending heavily on weaponry. Worldwide military expenditure saw its steepest rise in 2024 since the end of the Cold War, reaching $2.7 trillion as wars and rising tensions drove up spending.
In the case of Europe, the main drivers of its surge was, I guess, the war in Ukraine in the short term, but also the security concern posed by Russia in the long term. So we saw that in the start of the war, not only did Russia and Ukraine both continue to increase spending, but many of the ambitious announcements by European governments since the start of the war really start to materialize.
Now the spike in Russia's indigenous weapon manufacture comes despite the fact that Western nations have imposed all kinds of sanctions to stifle Moscow's war chest. But under President Putin, the Kremlin has created a new kind of supply chain, which Western experts say ranged from North Korea to Iran and even China. But that's not all. New long-range unmanned aerial systems and next-gen air defense missiles are being tested and deployed. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
There is a fresh wave of anxiety in Pakistan. It's over India's nuclear capabilities, more specifically, India's supersonic cruise missile BrahMos. Weeks after India's precision strikes in response to the Pahalgam terror attack, Pakistan is still rattled. And a headline today shows just how deep that nervousness actually runs. In an interview with Bloomberg News, Pakistan's former foreign minister and a coalition leader in the ruling government, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari said, I'm quoting, India's use of a nuclear-capable missile leaves just 30 seconds to decide. He fears that in a future clash, both sides could escalate too fast for even global leaders to intervene. But here are the facts. India has not declared BrahMos as nuclear armed. Moreover, India has a no first use nuclear policy. Pakistan, on the other hand, does not have a no first use nuclear policy. And in recent days, Pakistan's constant nuclear saber rattling was exposed by India's Chief of Defence Staff that the conflict in May never came close to nuclear war. But what did happen was that post the escalation in May, India issued a clear warning to Pakistan. Prime Minister Modi redefined India's policy against terrorism to say that any act of terror against India will be considered an act of war. Now, Pakistan claims this is unfair. In the same interview, Bilawal said that India launches full-blown war without proof. But the truth is well documented. And here's a reminder, the Pahalgam terror attack was claimed by TRF. It's an offshoot of the Pakistan-based UN-designated terror group, Lashkar-e-Toiba. In fact, the TRF bragged about it until its masters in Pakistan, sensing trouble, denied proof and made them retract. India has provided proof multiple times, every time. But Islamabad keeps denying and deflecting and trying to play victim. In fact, Zardari, just days ago, was fact-checked live at the UN press briefing for making false claims about Indian Muslims. And this is the man Islamabad is sending to talk peace? Moreover, India's stance on talks with Pakistan remains clear and unchanged. Terror and talks cannot go together. And so, while Pakistan rants about war in anticipation, Prime Minister Modi was in Jammu and Kashmir today, inaugurating the world's highest railway arch bridge over the Chenab River, a bridge that is taller than the Eiffel Tower. He also flagged off Vande Bharat trains, launched rupees 46,000 crore worth of projects, and said, quote, "Any obstacle to Jammu and Kashmir's development will face me first," quote unquote. And this is what further rattles Pakistan. Not missiles, but the true progress and development in Jammu and Kashmir. The answer that Pakistan will have to provide is on the abject poverty spread across Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. As far as escalation goes, who really started it? After the Pahalgam terror attack, India's response was calibrated, professional, precise attacks on terror infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. But Pakistan responded with drone attacks, triggering sirens and blackouts in parts of India. Of course, India's air defense acted swiftly in downing them. But why did Pakistan panic? It's because Pakistan is economically cornered, diplomatically isolated, and this fretting is the result of the deep strikes and invincibility that the Indian hardware demonstrated. And Pakistan's playbook is old. Harbor terrorists, then deny links to attacks on India, raise Kashmir, raise the nuclear bogey, play victim, and then talk about peace. And of course, ask for third-party mediation, be it Trump or Saudi Arabia. But India is firm. No mediation, no compromise anymore on terror and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. As the Indian External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, told his German counterpart on May 23rd, quoting, "India will deal with Pakistan purely bilaterally. There should be no confusion in any quarter in that regard," quote unquote. Meanwhile, there are several questions that Pakistan needs to answer first, questions that even the international community should ask. The most important one being, why doesn't Pakistan commit to a no first use nuclear policy? Pakistan does not have a formal no first use policy for nuclear weapons. And until it does, these nuclear alarm bells sound more like diversions than real danger, because the real threat is Pakistan's refusal to act against terror and its refusal to commit to a no first use policy for nuclear weapons. Switching gears, what started out as an unstoppable alliance between the world's most powerful man and the world's richest has just exploded. And how? Elon Musk and Donald Trump, once bound by power, ambition, billions, are now locked in a public feud that could actually reshape American politics and beyond. Our next story takes a closer look at the meltdown that played out on social media and what happens next after the end of this bromance.
It was the alliance of the century.
As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark MAGA.
Trump campaign energy fused with Musk's tech empire.
The people voted for major government reform, and that's what the people are going to get. They're going to get what they voted for.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy.
Musk cheered Trump as he was elected president for the second time.
A star is born, Elon. Now he is. Now he's an amazing guy.
Trump gave Musk unprecedented powers, gave him the reins of Doge to save billions of American taxpayers' money.
Elon is doing a great job. He's finding tremendous fraud and corruption and waste.
They laughed over dinner. discussed policy at golf resorts, and hailed each other in speeches and memes. And then this happened. Hurling barbs at each other on the social media sites they each own, a bitter end to their unlikely alliance. Trump slammed Musk, says he is disappointed for Musk's continuous attacks on his big, beautiful bill.
But I'm very disappointed because Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here, better than you people. He knew everything about it. He had no problem with it. All of a sudden he had a problem, and he only developed the problem when he found out that we're going to have to cut the EV mandate, because that's billions and billions of dollars, and it really is unfair.
Musk continues to fire attack after attack on his X platform, saying Trump wouldn't have won the election without his backing. Trump doubled down by threatening Musk's massive government contracts, including for launching rockets and for the use of Starlink satellite service. Musk then went ballistic. He tweeted, suggesting without evidence that Trump appears in unreleased files related to late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein was arrested in July 2019 on charges of sex trafficking and died by suicide while awaiting trial.
The bromance that helped shape the 2024 campaign,
digital meme wars and billion-dollar defense deals is no more. What remains is a scorched battlefield and a looming question. What's next? Will Musk throw his weight behind a new candidate or run himself? Or could there be a patch-up? Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
On Thursday night, Israel carried out airstrikes on the Lebanese capital Beirut's southern suburbs, saying it was targeting drone production of the Lebanese group Hezbollah. The strikes, which hit 8 buildings at 4 locations, marked the first time in more than a month that Israel had struck on the outskirts of Beirut, and the 4th time since a US brokered ceasefire agreement ended the latest war between Israel and Hezbollah in November. In a wave of intense bombing, at least 10 Israeli airstrikes ravaged the southern suburb of Dayeh, a traditional stronghold of Hezbollah, and several areas in South Lebanon. Other areas included Haret Rik and Burj El Barajneh. In fact, more significantly, the attack comes on the eve of Eid al-Adha, one of the most important occasions, celebrations in Islam, and a religious holiday for the Muslims. In a statement, the Lebanese president strongly condemned the strikes and called them a flagrant violation of an international accord, thus referring to the ceasefire that took place in November last year. In fact, earlier evacuation warnings for several buildings in the Beirut neighborhoods were issued. Loud explosions were heard in different parts, and the strikes sent thousands fleeing. However, no injuries were reported so far.
We were at home when they sent the warning. We had our children with us. We carried them and went down. What you see here, it looks like just a residential building. This is the Israeli occupation. What did the ceasefire committee do for us? What did the American ceasefire guarantees do for us?
Since at the location, there was an evacuation warning and there was no surprise. Actually, we got used to this. Each time there is a strike, and we lived the war for a year and a half, and sacrifices will continue to be offered. We would all sacrifice ourselves for this resistance.
As per the IDF, the strikes targeted a Hezbollah unit producing thousands of drones underground, funded and directed. In fact, they were also intended to prevent Hezbollah from regrouping after a war that took out much of its senior leadership and arsenal. The strikes also came in the wake of the Israeli Prime Minister confirming that Israel is arming clans in Gaza that he says are opposed to Hamas. The conflict between Israel and Lebanon is long-standing, one that reportedly killed over 4,000 people in Lebanon, including hundreds of civilians. And back in April, the Lebanese government said that Israeli strikes had killed another 190 people and wounded 485 since the ceasefire took effect. And the tensions between the two sides are only simmering. Meanwhile, Israel continues to attack Gaza. In the last 24 hours, over 30 people were killed in several parts. An entire family was wiped out, among other tragic stories coming in. And before we move on any further, here's a quick look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. We tell you all about the anti-ship weapon tested by the US stealth bomber. Is it a game changer? What is known so far? The Trump-Musk breakup has implications for what's happening beyond planet Earth as well. What will the feud mean for NASA and its future space missions? We decode that for you. All this and more coming up. The US Air Force recently tested a new 500-pound variant of its anti-ship weapon, Quick Sink, dropped from a B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. And as the name suggests, the latest evolution of the bomb is designed not just to hit ships, but to sink them. The weapon is based on the Joint Direct Attack Munition, GBU-38 Joint Direct Attack Munition, or JDAM, and it allows US aircraft to carry more bombs per sortie at a fraction of the cost of cruise missiles. Here's how it actually works. Once launched, the bomb uses GPS and onboard sensors to locate a ship, switches to an infrared seeker to lock on, and then explodes just below the waterline, maximizing damage and creating a sinking effect. Let's talk numbers now. A Harpoon missile costs $1.4 million. The LRASM, over $3 million. The Quick Sink aims to cost as low as $50,000 per unit. That's a game changer, especially when bombers can carry dozens at once. A B-2 can carry up to 80 of these 500-pound bombs. F-15 Strike Eagles up to 15 per jet. Even lighter jets like the F-16 Viper can gain more firepower with Quick Sink. The US says it needs this weapon because of China. China has a rapidly growing navy and is currently the largest in the world, with over 370 warships and 2 aircraft carriers. And the US, that considers China its biggest threat, is preparing for a high-stakes standoff in the Indo-Pacific. And the Quick Sink could become a crucial tool in that theater. The US Air Force says building a cheaper stockpile of smart munitions is vital, not just to deter conflict, but to sustain a prolonged war if one breaks out. The war in Ukraine and the conflict in West Asia have only sharpened the thinking. But it's not without trade-offs. Quick sink lacks the long standoff range of cruise missiles, which basically means that pilots or even drones would need to get closer, which is a risky task, unless it is launched from stealth aircraft like the B-2 or F-35. Still, according to experts, the 500-pound quick sink opens up tactical options for the US Air Force, from hitting smaller warships to disrupting enemy supply chains to striking cargo ships in ports or overwhelming coastal defenses. The US Air Force Research Lab called it a new way to rapidly neutralize maritime threats. General David Alvin, the Chief of Staff of the US Air Force, said the new quick sink significantly enhances the ability to strike stationary or moving vessels. Whether quick sink becomes a frontline weapon or stays a niche tool, it's already influencing military planning, especially as the Pentagon weighs quantity versus quality, cost versus survivability in an era of great power competition with China. The next war may not be fought with just missiles and ships. The next war will be fought with stealth, sensors, and smart bombs dropped from above. Religious freedom in Pakistan, especially for the Ahmadiyya community, continues to be a matter of grave concern. The Lahore High Court Bar Association has asked the Punjab Police Chief to block members of the Ahmadiyya community from performing Islamic rituals during Eid al-Adha. During the festival, local administrations have reportedly forced Ahmadiyyas to sign legal documents promising not to pray or offer animal sacrifices. The penalty for breaking the promise? Fines of up to $1,800 or worse, legal cases. And what's behind all of this? What's the crime of the Ahmadiyyas? Nothing except identifying as Muslims in a country that criminalizes their very identity. The Lahore Bar Association claims Ahmadiyyas are illegally presenting themselves as Muslims and demands legal action if they take part in the Eid rituals. But this has got nothing to do with protecting Islam. It's a clear case of controlling who has the right to practice their faiths. According to local media reports, at least 3 have been murdered in Pakistan since April, but instead of offering protection, Pakistan appears to be encouraging more threats and violence through official orders. Amnesty International has condemned these actions against the community. After reviewing the orders from Lahore, Karachi, Rawalpindi, Sialkot, Amnesty says Pakistan is not just looking away, rather it is complicit. Authorities are detaining these people simply for wanting to pray. And who exactly are the Ahmadiyyas? They follow the 5 pillars of Islam. They believe in Prophet Muhammad and revere Mirza Ghulam Ahmad as a promised reformer. But because their interpretation does not match Pakistan's approved version, they are being targeted and punished. And this is religious discrimination. And Pakistan cannot hide behind penal codes to justify it, because religious freedom is not a privilege, it's a basic right. As nuclear talks with the United States remain in limbo, Iran is preparing a military backup plan for a full-scale war. Iran has signed a massive deal to import thousands of tons of ammonium perchlorate from China. a chemical that powers solid-fueled ballistic missiles. And according to a report by the Wall Street Journal, once delivered, the stockpile could help Iran produce as many as 800 missiles. And this is not just about self-defense. Iran appears to be positioning itself for a broader regional strategy. According to the WSJ report, some of these materials may end up with proxy militias, including the Houthis in Yemen. Tehran continues enriching uranium just shy of weapons grade and made it clear that it will not consider imposing any kind of restrictions on its uranium enrichment. Iran's representatives at the United Nations, in fact, declined to comment on the issue, while a Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson said China was not aware about any such deal. According to the US, Iran's missile program is among the most advanced in the region, and these new chemical deliveries could significantly expand that firepower. Behind the scenes, Iran is digging in, literally. Like we told you on the show last night, the Iranian army is already laying the groundwork for 5 new military bases missile bases across the country. 5 new missile bases across the country. And plans are drawn, they are already being organized, and there are many more such instances recently that demonstrate how Iran is preparing itself for a war-like situation. Just a few weeks ago, the IRGC unveiled its first underground drone base stocked with locally built UAVs, surveillance drones, loitering munitions. While back in March, Iran also revealed its largest underground missile depot, showcasing vast supplies of ballistic and cruise missiles. And last month, the Iran military rolled out the Qasem Basir, a new solid-fueled missile with a range of 1,200 kilometers, touted as capable of evading most anti-missile defense systems. And Israel is likely to be monitoring all these developments closely. Israel has told the White House they will not launch a strike against Iran unless US President Donald Trump signals that diplomacy has failed. Regardless, for Iran, the message is absolutely clear. If the talks collapse, a plan B for tackling war is already in motion. The US Justice Department has convicted a Pakistani national who played a central role, reportedly, in an illegal missile smuggling operation tied to Iran and the Houthis. The US authorities identified the man as 49-year-old Mohammad Pehlwan. In fact, he captained a small vessel intercepted by a US Navy vessel near Somalia in January 2024. The US Navy SEALs and Coast Guard personnel boarded the boat and uncovered components for ballistic missiles, anti-ship cruise systems, and a warhead, equipment consistent with weapons the Houthis have used to strike commercial and military ships in the Red Sea. He, along with 3 other men, were taken into US custody. Prosecutors accused him of conspiring with 2 Iranian nationals linked to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The group allegedly were about to transfer the missile parts to another ship for final delivery to Houthi commanders in Yemen. And when they were intercepted, a US Navy SEALs attempted to board the smuggler's vessel. One operator fell into the sea, possibly due to a wave or a misstep. A second SEAL immediately followed to rescue his colleague, but neither returned. The US Navy later declared both men deceased, and their bodies remain unrecovered. The court has now convicted the man for several crimes that have a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison, with the final sentencing to be announced in September. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi says he will be attending the Group of 7 Leaders Summit in Canada after receiving an invitation from the new Canadian Premier. The Canadian Prime Minister spoke to the Indian Prime Minister just a short while back, in fact. The 2025 G7 Leaders Summit will be held in Alberta from June 15 to 17. Prime Minister Modi said in a post on X, glad to receive a call from Prime Minister Carney, thanked him for the invitation to the G7 summit later this month. Look forward to our meeting at the summit. India is not a member of the G7, which is a grouping of 7 of the world's richest countries. It comprises of the US, UK, Germany, France, Italy, Canada, and Japan. India, though, has been a regular attendee at the crucial meeting. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has regularly attended the G7 meetings in the past. Also, it's noteworthy that India has overtaken Japan to become the fourth largest economy. And for more on all of this, our assistant editor for Foreign Affairs getting us this report. Take a look.
The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been invited for the G7 summit that will take place later this month in Canada. The invite was extended by the Canadian Prime Minister in a telephonic conversation to the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and we know that India has been regularly invited at the G7 summits since 2019, but this time there were questions given the fact that there was no official information coming from the host Canada. We know that India-Canada relationship under the previous Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau went for a free fall. But the focus of the current Canadian Prime Minister is to improve the relationship. And we know that the Indian Prime Minister will be traveling to Canada, where he will be having a meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister, but an occasion to have conversations with other leaders. In fact, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the US President Donald Trump will be face to face for the first time since Operation Sindhur, India's strikes on terror camps in Pakistan in the month of May. We know that Donald Trump has been claiming that he was responsible for the ceasefire understanding, something that India has dismissed, saying that it is something that was because of the bilateral conversation, the Pakistani side reaching out to the Indian side, calling for the ceasefire understanding. Sudhan Sibal for WION.
A fiercely contested Scottish by-election has ended in a dramatic victory for Prime Minister Keir Starmer's Labour Party in a much-needed political boost after months of falling support. Labour's Davy Russell won the seat of Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse in the Scottish Parliament, narrowly defeating the Scottish National Party. Despite a low media profile during the campaign, Russell secured 8,559 votes ahead of the SNP's 7,957, while Reform UK finished third with 7,088.
Has also sent a message to Farage and his mob tonight. The poison of reform isn't us, it isn't Scotland, and we don't want your division here.
The by-election was triggered by the deaths of a veteran SNP leader, Christina McKelvey, who held the seat since 2011. But the contest quickly escalated, becoming a flashpoint. Reform UK leader drew widespread condemnation, repeatedly referencing the ethnicity of the Scottish Labour leader, who is of Pakistani descent. Sarwar lauded the result and says people voted for a government in which they believe. Take a listen in.
Incredible result, and I think it demonstrates that something is happening right across Scotland. Look, I'm going to reflect not just on the result, but the conversations I've been having on the doorstep. And I think it's obvious people do want a UK Labour government to go further and faster in improving their lives, but they also want an end to this SNP government that has done so much damage to Scotland.
For Labour leader and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, this victory brings a moment of relief. After his general election landslide last year, his party had struggled with the fallout from tax increases, welfare cuts. In a statement, Starmer said, and I'm quoting here, "People in Scotland have once again voted for change." He added, Labour is now poised to turbocharge delivery if voters back the party on both sides of the border next year. And our correspondent getting us this report from London. Take a look.
It was a very close win for Davy Russell, but one that he and Labour are absolutely delighted with. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, has hailed the win, and he believes, and Anna Sarwar, the leader of Scottish Labour, believe that when Scottish parliamentary elections happen next year, it means this shows that the Labour Party have a chance of taking power from the SNP, the Scottish nationalists, in that election. And they are doubly delighted because there had been concerns that they could actually come not just second but third in this race behind Reform. Now, Reform, although they didn't beat Labour in this particular by-election, did get around a quarter of the vote, which they say is an incredible achievement.
And switching gears, the impact of the imploding Trump-Musk bromance is expected to be felt beyond planet Earth. What does it hold for NASA and its future space missions? The Musk-Trump feud saw Musk threaten to cut off NASA's use of the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft in a statement that he later retracted. But in case the tech billionaire goes through with that threat, NASA will suffer a huge blow. Not only will the space agency be deprived of the use of the only American vehicle capable of transporting astronauts to the International Space Station, but it will also dramatically restrict its access to the $100 billion orbiting lab. Not just that, it could also jeopardize space missions like the Axiom space flight that will carry 4 astronauts, including an Indian, to space next week itself. Also, SpaceX's role in multiple federal programs puts the Pentagon and U.S. intelligence agencies at risk. Over the years, SpaceX has been critical in launching sensitive national security payloads like satellites that provide missile warning, battlefield communication, and guide munitions to precise targets. SpaceX is also one of the biggest contractors for NASA, which means if anything, the Trump-Musk feud has done is to expose NASA's vulnerability in a way as well. Another significant impact of the fallout could be on national policy, including major changes to the NASA budget and its ambitions of sending astronauts to the moon. All said and done, the immediate question for NASA is how to retain Musk's SpaceX for its key operations in the low Earth orbit and, of course, to save its mission moon from falling apart. In today's world, it's hard to ignore AI. From drafting that mail to making big decisions, AI has become a crucial part of many people's lives. But did you know that it could be contributing to the climate crisis as well? A new study has revealed that AI is scaling the tech industry's emissions to dangerous levels. A new report from the United Nations International Telecommunication Union has revealed an average 150% increase in indirect carbon emissions by 4 leading AI-focused tech companies in just 3 years between 2020 and 2023. So what exactly led to that spike? As per the study, high energy demands of AI systems and data centers are driving up global energy consumption. And in 2021, AI and machine learning contributed 0.2% of global emissions. That was about 10% for the entire tech sector. It has only accelerated since then. Among the worst performers is Amazon, whose operational emissions reportedly increased 182% over the 2020 to 2023 period, followed by Microsoft 155%, Meta 145%, and Alphabet 138%. As per the study. And these include the emissions directly created by operations of these companies as well as those from purchased energy consumption. What are the takeaways here? While AI innovations and growing demand for digital services like cloud computing are promising, clearly they come at a cost, one borne by the planet. And at this pace, emissions from AI systems could soon hit 102.6 million tons of carbon dioxide every year. Hold on to everything you thought you knew about the cosmos. The story we have been told about the universe's genesis might be a cosmic fabrication. A new theory dares to question the ultimate origin, suggesting the Big Bang was not the starting gun, but a mere echo in an infinitely grander cycle. Take a look at this report.
The Big Bang, the explosive origin of time and space, may not be the beginning after all. For nearly a century, the Big Bang has stood as the ultimate origin story, the fiery moment from which all space, time, and matter exploded into being. Now, a team of physicists argue that the Big Bang wasn't the beginning, but a transition, like waking up from a long sleep into another cycle of a far older universe. This bombshell theory, recently detailed in Physical Review Journal, proposes a bouncing cosmology, where the universe didn't explode from nothing, but rather rebounded from a previous phase of contraction. Imagine the universe collapsing inward over billions of years, and then bouncing back into expansion. This idea is more than poetic, it's mathematical. The study builds on new equations in loop quantum gravity, a field that aims to bridge the laws of quantum mechanics and general relativity. So maybe we weren't born from a one-time bang, but from a repeating beat of crunch and expansion, a universe that inhales and exhales forever. The Big Bang wasn't the beginning, it was the bounce before the next breath. This isn't just a tweak to our understanding, it's a fundamental shift in perspective.
Your midnight phone habits are not just stealing hours from your crucial sleep, they are also literally stealing years from your life. While you think you are harmlessly scrolling through social media or catching up on messages or anything else, your brain is paying a devastating price. In fact, science has finally revealed just how dangerous your late-night digital addiction really is.
It's 11 p.m., you're in bed, and you tell yourself you'll just check Instagram or WhatsApp for 5 minutes. 3 hours later, you're still scrolling through skincare hacks, relationship advice, and endless reels. Sound familiar? This seemingly innocent routine is quietly destroying your brain and aging your body at an alarming rate. According to studies, just one night of poor sleep makes your brain appear 1 to 2 years older instantly. That's right, your late-night scrolling session literally ages your brain overnight. The irony is brutal. While you're watching skincare tutorials at midnight, your sleep deprivation is sabotaging your natural glow. Without proper rest, your metabolism crashes, cell damage increases, and tissue repair shuts down. The damage goes deeper than skin deep. Now, a new research from the University of Groningen tracked 23,798 people over a decade, measuring cognitive ability. The results are terrifying for night owls. Individuals who stayed up late showed significantly higher rates of cognitive decline. These findings add crucial evidence to our understanding of aging and dementia, including Alzheimer's disease. Your chronotype, whether you're naturally an early bird or night owl, isn't just a preference anymore. It's a predictor of how quickly your mind will deteriorate. The late-night scrolling that feels so innocent today could be setting you up for serious cognitive problems tomorrow. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Have a great weekend. Thanks very much for watching.
We're giving an AI-generated video where we can analyze your credit history, your credit score.
It's all about now content. A lot of it is now digital. A lot of TV content is still being watched.
I think it's been a fantastic journey. We have succeeded in